to Transcendental Transformation, the place where spirituality and transformation unite. Host Miss Raina imparts truth so that you can break through your limiting beliefs and evolve into a deeper consciousness. As you go about your day, remember, before every breakthrough, there is a breakdown. And now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Transcendental Transformation. I'm your host, Miss Raina, and today is Wednesday, September 7th, 2022. As always, we're coming live right here in the Sirius Star System Studios right here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I hope all is well with everybody. So, yeah, we're here on Wednesday. Yesterday, my mind's already all over the place. My mind's already ready for the show. Yesterday, we had some issues with the notes and some technical issues, so we just decided to cut it and redo it today. So I hope you're joining us today. If not, hopefully you're on the archive, but welcome anyways. I hope you guys had an amazing Labor Day weekend. I really didn't do too much. I don't even remember what I did right now. I remembered yesterday. Isn't it funny how, we're all set. We have our mind ready to go. And then the next thing you know, you do it the next day later and you can't remember what you did the weekend. But I know it was relaxing. I didn't do too much. Hopefully you guys had a great Labor Day weekend. Let me know what you guys did. Email me, write me on social media, whatever you guys have to do. I'm not going to do a big intro today because there was just so much stuff we got to cover. Just so many vitamins, minerals, and labels and all sorts of different things that, it just takes up time. But as always, guys, we're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, DLive, and the replay links are all on iHeart, Spotify, Pandora, all that stuff, YouTube, everything. So if you want to find the links for the replays, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Transcendental Transformation, and they will be there. So last week we did a show on the first part on true wealth is having good health, and we talked about things like H2O versus H3O. We went over a couple acceptables, serving sizes, things, labels, organic versus natural, and these are something that's all very important. And I believe we stopped last week on high fructose corn syrup, and we were talking about how it's processed sugar made from cornstarch. Excuse me, my throat has been a little rough today, so. And just how, it's a very strong sweetener, and it's in everything. You see it in so many candies and so many things all across the board, syrups, everything. They add all these super strong sweeteners, and we were talking about how, in short term, it creates more fat, fat production. It reduces energy, even though it's a sugar, a processed sugar. It'll give you, that jolt of energy just for it, but you'll come crashing down like all processed sugars. It creates inflammation and just so many things. And we were talking about how it interferes with our triglyceride levels. One of the things that I think that we should understand between cholesterol and triglycerides is this. Having high cholesterol isn't a bad thing for you, okay? Some people naturally make high cholesterol, and that's just the way life is. We need it for hormones and our body to function properly. So cholesterol is not a bad guy. It is our friend. And we have been told one of the biggest lies that cholesterol is bad. If you have too much cholesterol, you got to go on these cholesterol medications and everything, and that's just not true. What is important to keep an eye on is your triglycerides. There's nobody that has ever had a heart attack, stroke, or anything from cholesterol. It's the triglycerides. If your triglycerides are high, then that's a marker that you could have a stroke, heart attack, whatever, start getting, all these different things, health issues, especially with the heart. That's where we have to do. So yes, like high fructose corn syrup does increase cholesterol, but it increases a lot of triglycerides, and it messes with our metabolic issue. It creates metabolic issues like metabolic syndrome, diabetes, cancer, heart disease. So I just wanted to clarify that a little bit because I know we kind of stopped in the middle of the last week's show about that. But this is a toxic chemical that we got to stay away from. Almost how we started to stay away from trans fats because trans fats are terrible for us. Well, high fructose corn syrup and corn syrup, which are the same chemical, and as a to reiterate what I said last time, they're basically the same chemical, and a lot of companies have found a way just to get around it to add the same product more, and so they just call it something different. So if you see high fructose corn syrup and corn syrup, it's the exact same thing. It's just double the amount now, or a little bit more of the amount, and it's just not something you want to put in your body, especially long term. So let's get into vitamins, because one of the things that as someone who used to be I'm still in health. I mean, obviously, I'm just taking a break from it because of everything. But someone that used to go to the weights, work out all the time and do things, and I used to supplement. One of the things that I think we lose track of is, and we give underrating to, is vitamins, because we're always looking for the next supplement. We're always looking for the next big thing: coconut oil, oil pulling, just whatever it is. There's always just something new that we have to. But it's the vitamins and minerals that are the basic ones that are really the ones that we really need to focus on. Vitamin C is one of the most basic fundamental vitamins that we know of, and it's found in many fruits and vegetables. I mean, when you think of vitamin C, you think of orange right away, right? But it's also in things like kiwis and things that are like leafy greens, a lot of your reds, yellows. Those are a lot of things, especially your greens too. Bell peppers, things like that. But vitamin C gets kind of like this rap that kind of just gets dismissed, because we only think of taking vitamin C when we're sick, right? We only take it, then all of a sudden we take 1,000 milligrams. And when we get into vitamins, I want to make it clear to a lot of people that don't know this. I'm sure a lot of you know this already, but at best, whenever we take a vitamin or a supplement or a mineral, especially when it's synthetic, at best the maximum we can absorb is 10%. So at best, if you take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, at best you're going to get is maybe 10%. It depends on how healthy you are. It depends on the absorption rate. It depends on the quality of the synthetic. That's why eating your fruits and vegetables, even if it's a lower amount of vitamin C, is so much more potent than a lot of your synthetics. Now, when you're eating health, remember that vitamins and minerals and pills are supposed to be add-ons to your health. They're not supposed to be in replacement. So I know my mom's guilty of this, and I love her to death, but even she'll sit there and say, I'm like, Mom, you got to eat your fruits and vegetables. When I go in town, I juice all the time and do all these shakes and stuff, and then she'll eat it. But without me, she just wants a pill. She wants a pill of her fruits and vegetables, take two, twice a day, and be good with it and think that's health. and I love my mom to death, but in reality, that's not health. Just because we take a pill, we're only absorbing so much. So that's like saying, okay, well, I'm going to take this orange. Instead of eating this whole orange, I'm going to take a sliver of it and then cut the end off of it and eat that. And that's what it's like taking the pills. So they're supposed to be add-ons to help you kind of maintain your health, but you're supposed to be eating it through your dietary plans. But vitamin C, one of the things that we take is when we look at vitamin C, we look at the dosages, and most people understand that you're supposed to take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C. But actually, that's proven through a lot of research, through a lot of stuff, that's actually not correct. On average, most people, yes, you could take 500 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day. But I know there are a lot of people, especially athletes and people who work and do a lot of heavy stuff, and that take more than that. And there's people that are sick that take vitamin C therapy. They take it through the vein and injection. And even me, when I was having a lot of issues with my health, especially with the EBV, one of the treatments for it is high amounts of vitamin C. Some people take up to 10,000. Now, let me state right off the bat that I'm not telling you to take any amounts of any of the stuff that I'm talking about. You need to go speak with your licensed healthcare professional and then figure out what's best for you. But I do suggest that you do your research, because a lot of doctors and a lot of people are trained and conditioned to only say, well, you only need 1,000 milligrams. Well, sometimes the body needs more. On average, I was taking, I think even when I was working out, I was taking about 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams a day, and I was perfectly fine. In fact, even through all this illness, when I would think that my heart was going bad or something. I mean, I've had so many tests done over the last 2 years, and everyone says your heart and cardiovascular system is immaculate. Like, it's better than mine. And these people are EMTs and doctors that are fit and they're like, yeah, you have a better, because when we feed our body, especially when we're overworking, when we're over exercising, and we're only taking the minimum requirements, our body starves for it. That's why we're a lot of times we may be taking these supplements, we may be drinking these fruits and vegetable shakes and juicing and all that. But if we're still tired, if we're still fatigued, and we don't have some chronic illness that we don't know about, then a lot of times it's because we're still not supplementing. Maybe we're not getting enough rest at night, but we might not be supplementing in our daily thing. So it's a good idea to go out and do your research. And I'm not saying, just because you've read a few pages on Google that all of a sudden we have a doctorate now and all of a sudden we're the vitamin C's or the vitamin, kings and queens or PhDs of the world. What I'm saying is the more information we know, then we can discern what's best for us. We can sit there and say, well, is this something I want to take? Is this something? And we can kind of gauge, because I know that there's been times where if you take too much vitamin C, especially a synthetic, and that we create more acid reflux in us. So it's not really great for people who have poor health, especially poor digestive system, to take this vitamin in high doses, because they're going to have a high amount of acid reflux. So again, we have to educate ourselves. But what's great about vitamin C is a lot of people don't realize it's an antioxidant, and what that means is it takes away oxygen from oxidizing inside our body, which creates disease and poor function. So this helps our immune system. This protects against disease, and this helps. This helps produce collagen in our body, which will help repair our bodies, especially our tissue. Remember, if we're not feeding our body the things that we need, then we don't get this. So vitamin C helps also improve our mood, especially our mental health, because when our body has the nutrients it needs, a lot of times, I tell people that when you suffer from like depression and sadness and grief, if it's not because of unresolved issues, which 99.9% of the time it is, but if it's something else, a lot of times it might be that you're dehydrated. It might be that you don't have enough vitamins and minerals in you. You don't have enough nutrition in you. And your body is like, you know what? I don't have enough for me. So I'm tired. I'm fatigued. I can't do anything. And we understand that a lot of our mental health comes from our gut. We used to think that in the pituitary gland used to produce all the serotonin, but it doesn't. It produces 5-HTP, which is the precursor to serotonin, and our gut produces the main source of 5-HTP. And with serotonin, our gut produces serotonin. And so if our gut health is poor and it's inflamed and we're eating all this garbage and we don't have things like vitamin C and vitamin E and all this stuff to help protect our stuff, then what happens is we don't produce serotonin, we don't feel healthy and happy, and it's a snowball chain reaction. So this is something that's very important. One of the great qualities of vitamin C also is it increases bone health. A lot of people don't think about that because we think calcium, right? Well, we think calcium, magnesium, all this stuff to help, vitamin D. In order for calcium to absorb into bones, you have to have vitamin D. People a lot of times don't understand that. But this is something that we have to realize, that there's many minerals into a lot of our bodies, and we just always hear about one or two minerals that we think, oh, vitamin C, immune, calcium, bone. We have all these different ideas. Vitamin E, hair, skin, and nails. But we don't really think that there's all these different other options for these vitamins. So this is something for us to understand. The next vitamin that I want to get into is vitamin E, because this is a fat soluble vitamin. And what that means is anytime you have when you have fat soluble vitamins means that you need to ingest fats in order for them to absorb into the body. So if you have any if you have your A deck, right, because that's your fat soluble vitamins. So if you're not eating enough olive oil, ghee, omegas from your fishes and everything like that, if you're not eating a lot of avocado oil, if you're not eating a lot of healthy oils, then all these fat-soluble vitamins don't do anything. They just get excreted by the kidneys and be flushed out. And this is why so many of us have brittle hair, brittle nails and stuff, because we've been told, what's one of the biggest lies we've been told in our society is stay away from carbs and stay away from fats. They're bad for you. Well, carbohydrates is one of the first sources of energy that the body needs, especially to be active. It's the quickest burned off, and it's very valuable to our body. And fat helps your heart, your brain, and so many different organs in your body. Without fat, you cannot function. And so you can take all the vitamin E's, and what's the standard? I think it's 800 IUs, but you can take way more vitamin E than that, because there's a lot of studies out there by double-blind, peer-reviewed from a lot of the top universities all over the world, and a lot of top independent study labs that say, hey, you know what, you can take a lot more of this stuff. But the thing is here in the United States, and I'm not going to get into this really big because we can go on a whole nother show on this, but our government does monitor and restrict and tell us that set up an idea that they want you to take a least amount that is possible, because one, if you take a small amount, they can't, you can't overdose, you can't do this, and then you can't turn around and sue them. Two, they know that if you take a very low dose, let's say you take a dose of vitamin E, 800 IUs, and you don't eat enough fat because they tell you stay away from fat, and then you're only absorbing at best 10% of it, what really are you doing? All you're doing is buying very expensive vitamins and minerals, and you're peeing them right out, and you're completely wasting them. And they know that. And so they tell you to take a low amount because of all these reasons. So it's up to you, the person, to start to do your research. And I don't mean Google and talk about go on the first couple websites that that say, oh, vitamin E, because you'll see vitamin E is great, vitamin E is terrible, don't take this, take this. I'm talking about go find, even if you have to pay for some websites that are done by independent, double-blind, peer-reviewed places that aren't bought or sold by any companies or anything like that, or invested in anything. They will tell you that out of all the thousands of studies that they've done over the decades and stuff like that, that you can take a lot more of this. I know I take way more vitamin E. I mean, right now with my with what I'm going through, I stopped all supplementation. I haven't taken really anything except for when I got sick with a cold. I took some vitamin C and some vitamin B's and everything. I took some zinc and everything. But on a daily basis, I stopped because the only thing I want to put in my body besides the medication that I'm taking is is my nutrition there. And even that's been kind of off because my body has been so sensitive to everything. But the fact of the matter is that we have to understand what it is we're taking. All your vitamins and minerals can be taken more than what is listed. But again, this is the problem we run into. So back to vitamin E, because I know we're almost on break here. But you can find vitamin E in a lot of stuff. And I know, hey, pumpkin time is coming up. Samhain's coming up. For those of you who don't know what Samhain is, that's the original name for Halloween. But you can find it on a lot of your leafy greens, but pumpkin pies, all the pumpkins. I'm not saying that go out to Starbucks and buy a pumpkin spice frappuccino because, hey, I got my vitamin because that's full of sugar. But pumpkin, avocado, I love avocado. Mangoes are great. Asparagus, I'm not a fan of asparagus, but if you are, that's great. Sunflowers are amazing. I love to eat sunflowers, especially when I was playing football and softball tournaments, man. I would eat those like Pez. Peanuts and almonds are another great source of that. But again, a lot of times they tell you it depends on if you're taking powder or gels. They tell you to take so many different things, but this vitamin E is great for also boosting the immune system. Anything that affects your hair, nails, skin, brain, and that you also have to remember that these are like in the olden days, they used to take a look at your hair, your teeth, and they could tell how healthy you are by how strong that is. And that's the same. If you're breaking away with your nails all the time, your hair is brittle, your eyesight's a little off, you're low in vitamin E. And there could be other things as well, but this is a good indication that, hey, we need more vitamin E in ourselves. So, all right, guys, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back after these messages from I Am Evolution.
The human experience is changing, and consciousness is evolving into something higher than any of us could ever imagine. as we transform into more sentient beings. A new world of connected consciousness is taking place. Welcome to I Am Evolution, the movement in human development that transforms the human experience into a deeper consciousness through perspective and duality. Are you ready to be a part of the next stage in human evolution? Call I Am Evolution today to schedule your appointment at 561 318 0006. That's 561 318 0006. Or email us at iamevolution@protonmail.com.
All right, we are back, and yes, if you're just joining us, we are. Let me fix this for a minute. Let me fix that. Okay, all right. We had to fix the camera a little bit. The backdrop is all messed up. It's there's a lot of changes here we're trying to do. So, all right, guys. So if you're just joining us, we are talking about vitamins, and we just went over vitamin E. And one of the things that we must understand is supplementation is important. But again, we have to understand that it is more important to get stuff from our fruits and vegetables in our diet than it is to go buy pills and things at the vitamin shop and other places and just put that in because we're not eating it. Vitamin A is known as beta carotene. A lot of people think right away with beta carotene, you think carrots, right? But there's a lot of different fruits and vegetables. However, though, vitamin A is very toxic when it's a synthetic. There's been a lot of research, and this is something I don't know why it's not more, it's not mandated to say, hey, this is toxic, taking it. But they have found out that most sources that are synthetic of vitamin A is very toxic to take, and it's sad because so many people take vitamin A because they're saying, well, take vitamin A for your eyes, etc., and all these different things, But I want you to really, if you're going to take a vitamin A source, first of all, try to make it from like a whole food source, like where it's all ground up food and you get it. That's one of the best ways to get it. But if it's a synthetic, I would really check your source and see like how toxic it is. And if you can't find anything, then I'd probably throw it out anyways and go find a whole food source. And I don't mean the store Whole Foods. I mean like a ground up form of vitamin A and take it. But again, where can we find some of these things? Well, spinach has a high amount, obviously carrots, squash, a lot of your oranges and yellows, your peppers, your cantaloupes, liver. I'm not a fan. My mom used to love liver and onions when she was little, and she even used to trick me and say, oh, look, it's a pork chop. and I would eat it, but I would know it would taste different. But just still, I'm not a fan of liver. And even some fish and animal products, those are essential for that. But the eyes, we all know that. But vitamin A is also great for body development, especially regenerative type of health. A lot of people can't, like a lot of your cells and different things like that need to regenerate every so often, every 7 years, every 3 years, your brain's, like everything regenerates. And it needs vitamin A in order for it to do that. So this is something that we must have in our diet. And of course, if you love carrot juice and everything like that, I go to town on it. However, though, you got to be careful because if your skin starts turning orange, that means you just have too much beta carotene, which is the precursor for vitamin A. But the recommended dosage is again 700 to 900 micrograms. And I will never take vitamin A outside of just eating it. If I'm low on vitamin A, I'm gonna do my juicing. I'm gonna make sure I get that way. I just don't trust anything. After learning how toxic it can be for the body and how toxic it can be for people, this is something that I just don't do. Some of the side effects that toxicity of vitamin A is things like liver damage, bone thinning, headaches, vertigo, nausea, diarrhea, birth defects, things like that. Those are some of just the side effects and the consequences that you could take from vitamin A toxicity. The next vitamin I want to talk about, because this is so important for you, and this is something that we really need to discuss. And then I think this is it. No, I got vitamin B's after that, and then this is it for the vitamins. But vitamin D is probably one of the most essential vitamins that you need to take. our sun is one of the main courses that give off vitamin D. Our sun gives off much more than just vitamin D. It gives off every type of vitamin and mineral that you could take. Anything that's a vitamin or mineral or metal or anything that's on this planet is from the sun. And so when a star explodes, it blasts out all through, and it gives out through solar burst, everything. So we get enough. But there are people that don't want you to know that you need vitamin D because, again, it's a fat-soluble vitamin, and it helps. It helps produce hormones. It helps it makes the body produce and so it's an essential nutrient that helps like regulation and different things like that. And we hear that the sun is bad for you. Well, again, because people who run the commercials, people who run health, the FDA, are all done by Pfizer. If Pfizer and all these Merck and all these other different pharmaceutical companies, if you go on TV and watch these news channels, you always see, hey, sponsored by Merck, sponsored by Pfizer, sponsored by Allegra, sponsored by this, and so those type of people run the commercials. They run what the people, because hey, these corporations get millions and billions of dollars. I mean, let's just say Pfizer over COVID made over $100 billion just on the COVID pandemic with the shots and everything. So that's big money. And vitamin D is one of those things that they don't want you to know that you need. And so they tell you sun is bad for you. Don't go to the sun. Don't get it because it's a free source of health. And put your sunblock on, because the moment you put sunblock on, you don't get any of the nutrients. And so this is not something that we need to understand. What we need to understand is, hey, if you're sensitive to the sun, go out 10, 15 minutes max without sunscreen, allow the body to absorb the sun, and then put on your sunscreen for the rest of the day or go in. That is something that allows you to absorb the minerals and the vitamins that you need and allow you to do this. One of the things that I make sure I do, I always make sure I take several teaspoons to tablespoons of, and I usually cook it. I used to just grab coconut oil and down it and that, but you know, if you're not used to that, that gets you sick. But again, vitamin D doesn't absorb in the body because it's a fat-soluble vitamin. It doesn't absorb in the body unless you have fats in there, which are healthy fat. And this is important. And why is vitamin D so important? Because one, it helps with bone formation. A lot of people, again, associate calcium, but calcium can't do its job if vitamin D isn't there. And same with magnesium. Magnesium can't help out calcium unless vitamin D is there. There are so many essential nutrients that you need that rely on other vitamins and minerals in order for them to be able to do its job. So this is something that we need to do. Vitamin D is great against fighting cancer. It is huge. It is why? Because it reduces inflammation. We understand that cancer is hot, stagnant energy. On a conscious, spiritual level, we understand that it's emotional, mental, and it's usually an acidic body and all these different things. But cancer is hot, stagnant energy, and we understand that. And where does all disease start from? Inflammation. If we have sickness, if we have inflammation, we're going to be led to sickness. It could be mental, it could be emotional, it could be physical, but we will be led with sickness if we have inflammation. And that's why it's so important, not just to, besides these vitamins, but to incorporate things like turmeric in our thing, bromelain, eating pineapples, because that has a large amount of bromelain in it, things that are anti-inflammatory into our diet constantly to reduce that stuff, to help us become more of an alkaline body. This is so much important. And vitamin D is something that we must need, and this is something that helps us. I know that when I got sick, because even though I was outside in the sun in the softball and football fields every day for 8 hours a day, my vitamin D was shot because of the EBV, and so it didn't allow the vitamins and nutrients to do that. So what I had to do was start taking. I started taking, when I first started my regimen prescribed by the doctor that I was seeing. He's like, take 20,000 of of vitamin D a day. Most times people take 500, and I know there's a lot of people here that take 5 to 10,000 IUs of vitamin D every single day, and they're fine. Of course, you should always get it checked. You should always be under a doctor's supervision with everything. But, that's the type of idea that we're getting into. We're starting to understand, well, why are these levels so low? Well, because again, if the levels are low that you're taking, you're not going to be healthy, and eventually it's going to lead to disease. So what are some foods that are important for vitamin D? Well, a lot of your fishes, a lot of your cod, swordfish, tuna, things like that. Beef is there, or I think beef liver. But beef liver, I know that if you eat too much of it, that you'll die. So I wouldn't go right after beef liver, because I think there's a beef liver, one type of liver that is so extremely high. Maybe it's a fish I'm thinking of, or a polar bear or something. I think it's a polar bear. Maybe that's it. I know there's a type of liver that's so high, or is it vitamin? Yeah, it's vitamin D. And so high in it that it'll kill you if you eat it, so you can't eat it. But pork chops, chicken, white mushrooms, and things like that are some of the essentials for vitamin D. But my suggestion, people, is don't be afraid of the sun. Don't be afraid of the things that you hear on TV and things that people repeat, because they don't know what they're talking about. Vitamin D, the sun is not cancerous. What is cancerous is you having an acidic body because you constantly eat terrible foods. And so when your body is acidic, it creates this type of environment that even if you weren't on the sun, you would get cancer anyways, because the body is acidic. Cancer cannot live in a slightly alkaline body. If you're too alkaline, that's a whole nother story for another show that we'll get into it. All right. So the next thing that I want to get into is the B vitamins, because the B vitamins, and we're only going to touch on a couple, because there's 8 different types, and a lot of times some of them you can get from food, and that you can get them from food, but I figured that these are important, the ones that you want to understand. So the first one that we're going to talk about is vitamin B2. And basically its job is to assist the electrons to transport chain and create energy. Without vitamin B2, you don't have the metabolism of the other vitamin B. So vitamin B2 is very essential for it. It's also an antioxidant for the body, and we explained a little bit about that. But so our body needs that in order for this stuff to process. And again, if you eat a plant-based diet, one of the things, without me constantly going into each and every food, because I know that kind of gets redundant and everything, if you eat more of a plant-based diet, you're covered with your vitamins and minerals. If you eat a lot of meat and dead food, and you microwave stuff and things like that, and you cook then you're not going to get any vitamins, because we're going to talk about microwaves in a little bit later. But if you eat your leafy greens and your plant-based stuff, and your fruits and vegetables and mushrooms and beans and everything, I'm telling you, you don't have to worry about what you're going to be supplement, because you're going to be able to get that. One of the things that vitamin B2 does one of where it's at is something that I stare people away from, is milk and cheese and eggs and soy milk, because we all understand that milk is blood, pus, mucus, and water from a cow, and it creates inflammation in the body. It clogs our lymphatic system, etc. So yes, I used to be a cheese lover. Once in a while, I still like cheese, even though I'm allergic to most of it now. But a lot of this stuff is very unhealthy for you. So I would look for a plant-based alternative rather than going into milk and cheese. And we all understand, we're going to get into soy a little bit later as well. But B6 as well, it's needed for metabolism. This is something that metabolizes carbs, fats, and proteins. It has over 100 roles in the body, and it helps with things like homocysteine productions, immune functions, homoglobulin production, and it helps make neurotransmitters. This is so essential. If you have a deficiency in this, which is uncommon by itself, but usually a lot of times the B vitamins are to the point where if you have one, you're deficient in a lot of other, because they kind of help each other. But vitamin B6 is very essential to this. B vitamins we think of all the time, especially B12. Hey, it's great for energy. And yes, B vitamins are great for energy, but a lot of times, like things like this, like when I got sick with a cold and my illness, I've been taking more things that have B6 in it because it helps build my immunity. This is something that a lot of people don't think. And plus, sometimes even when we're having issues like with brain fog and different things like that, and just fatigue, this is a great vitamin. B6 is a great vitamin for us to be able to take along with other B vitamins to kind of help live that. But also, people who are at high risk of things, should be careful with some of the supplementation, especially with this, like alcoholics, people with kidney disorders, celiac disease, all sort of colitis and Crohn's, because they might have reactions to taking supplements. Like, again, people, the message is always clear with all this stuff. If you eat it from your fruits and vegetables, it's so much safer than supplementation. Some of the B6 can, chickpea, if you like chickpea, like hummus and falafel. I mean, I'm a big fan of that. Again, beef and liver, chicken, and things like non-citrus fruit. Let's see. Let's go into B9. I have B7 too, but that's biotin, and we understand that that stuff is more for like fatty acids, proteins, things like that. You always hear, well, biotin's in products and skincare and all that stuff, and proteins because it's supposed to help. Remember what I said of that if we don't have enough protein and we don't have, it helps assist with protein so that we just look a little bit better and function a little bit better. But B9 folate is needed, is a very essential one as well, because it's needed for like a protein metabolism, and this is huge because this helps with production of red blood cells, a lot of times preventing anemia. So a lot of people who are anemic a lot of times are also deficient in B9, which is folate, and this is something that we have to that we should look at as supplementation as well. So a lot of times we think that, in order for us to, because we're anemic, let's not, we need B12 and other things like that. And yes, B12 is essential for, red cell blood production and everything like that. But also B9 folate is also essential in the process of red blood cells as well, which takes me to B12. So let's kind of skip over that, because what I want to talk about now is because there's just so much we got to cover, and we can go into other B's later on and everything like that. I have a ton of things in my notes, but I just don't want to bore you guys the whole time with just vitamins all the time, just listing them all, because you guys can go and search them all. But one of the things that we must understand when we're talking about good health or having good health is preservatives and toxic agents. There's a lot of stuff in our food, and this is something that we must understand. It's good to teach yourself how to read labels. There's so many apps on here that will teach you. They'll scan. You could scan it, and it'll tell you if there's toxic apps, or I'm sorry, not toxic. There's a lot of toxic apps on your phone too, but they'll tell you if there's a lot of toxic ingredients. It'll tell you what the preservatives are, if it's friendly, if the company's friendly, if it does stuff, if it's been in trouble with violations, etc. There's so many things. That's what I love about technology. But in order for us, when we're buying something, first, I always say this: whenever we're shopping, we should always shop on the outside of the store first. Why? Because on the outside of the store is all your produce, all your fresh food. Everything fresh is on the outskirts of the grocery store. In the inside, all the aisles is everything processed. So once it's in the inside, even if it's a healthier form, it's still processed. And more than likely, it has preservatives in it. It has additives. It has dyes. It has all these different things in it. And this is something that we must be cautious of, because we think, we hear the word like benzoates, which is a preservative, right? And so we hear sodium benzoate, and this is a preservative that's often in a lot of foods. This is something that leads to inflammation, allergic reaction, cancer. It leads to ADHD, kills healthy cells, and it's in a lot of our foods because it disrupts our metabolism. It's a carcinogenic thing, but this is okay because, and we think, we hear the word sodium and we think, oh, sodium, it's just salt. Well, that's not true. And yes, in a way, but a lot of times, just because we hear one part of the word, we tend to think of it and label it as something, but we don't really understand what it is. So when we learn to read these, a lot of preservatives aren't helpful to us. In fact, one of the things that has been happening, and actually I'm going to talk about this really quick. One of the things that has been happening is that a lot of people, since all these preservatives have been coming into play over the last 40 years, 50 years, people have been passing away. And when they dig up their body for something else, they're finding that a lot of bodies don't break down like they used to, that they're being preserved. And why? Because there's so much undigested preservatives and toxic chemicals that are in our body from the foods that we eat, that our body is actually preserved. And the breakdown of decomposition is amazing. And I just thought that was fascinating. But you know what, guys? We're needing a break, and we'll be right back after these messages from I Am Evolution.
The human experience is changing, and consciousness is evolving into something higher than any of us could ever imagine. As we transform into more sentient beings, a new world of connected consciousness is taking place. Welcome to I Am Evolution, the movement in human development that transforms the human experience into a deeper consciousness through perspective and duality. Are you ready to be a part of the next stage in human evolution? Call I Am Evolution today to schedule your appointment at 561-318-0006. That's 561-318-0006. Or email us at iamevolution@protonmail.com.
All right, everybody, we are back. And if you're just joining us for the third part, look, I know I'm going over a lot of information, and some of this is probably going, in and out. But the fact of the matter is that you always have this show to listen to, and it's a good idea to listen to this. And whatever you find interesting, hey, go look it up, because that's important for us to be able to understand. The next couple of preservatives is BHA and BHT, which are preservatives that help products last longer. And a lot of times you're going to see them. You'll probably see them under different names. A lot of times they just shorten it. One of the things that companies are getting really good at is renaming things, because once somebody hears about, oh, there's BHA in here, there's BHT, and there's carrageenan in here, and there's this and that, all of a sudden they're saying, well, we got to do something because we need to put this in our product. And they really don't, but it's just cheaper and easier for them. And if they sell a product that's going to last 4 or 5 weeks out there compared to a week, hey, it's better for them, right? Because then, you're going to buy their product. So, but this is something that gives you a longer shelf life, but this also messes with hormone production. Remember, hormones are so important for our body because they do so much for us. Where they're not just making us crazy and emotional all the time and just making us loopy and do, act out irrationally and stuff and make us cry for no reason. That, we always think hormones do that, but they're so vital. And we can actually probably do a show on hormones one day and just kind of break down all the things that hormones do besides make us crazy. But this is important because if our body isn't producing the hormones, then our body isn't functional of what it's capable of. And that spells bad news for us. But BHA and BHT is also carcinogenic because it slowly stops growth. And this is something that creates metabolic stress. It creates hyperactivity and disorder behaviors because, again, this is messing with our body. This is messing with our chemistry. If normal hormones are supposed to regulate different things, and it's not doing its job because it's not producing the hormones because we have these chemicals in us, then all of a sudden, hey, guess what? One of the things that used to happen to me when I was younger is I was always out of control as a child, especially in grade school, because I was always hyperactive. I was always had, looking off. I always wanted to get up and run around. And as an adult, especially as a teenager, I started looking and saying, well, why was I so crazy back then? Why am I still hyperactive? And I started noticing every time I ate something sugary and full of dyes and full of chemicals, full of preservatives, it would react that way. And for people who are hyperactive, who eat a lot of dyes and things like that, and high processed sugars and preservatives, that messes with you, and you go and you're very hyperactive and very all over the place. You can't control yourself because your body is trying to process that. And with all those processed sugars and dyes, that affects the liver. One of the things that I think that we don't give enough credit to is our liver. Our liver is a wonderful organ that really detoxifies our blood like crazy. I mean, you got to think about how much stress that we put our liver under constantly. We are always beating up our liver and our kidneys. So if you drink a lot, if you smoke, if you go out and party, if you're constantly eating garbage and microwave food, etc., if you're working around stuff like dust and paint and things like that, and breathing in chemicals, you're always putting chemicals and harsh things in your body. And I think that our liver, is so underappreciated because it really does take so much there. And when our liver goes down, that's really bad. When our liver and kidneys go down, that's really bad. But yeah, BHA also, and because it'll create toxicity in the blood, and that's a very, very toxic thing for our body to get into. Another toxic chemical that we see that's in a lot of stuff is calcium bromate. And what calcium bromate is it's a dough conditioner and a lot of times a bleaching agent. So it's banned in many countries. And what's funny is the United States is one of those countries that for some reason, well, I know the reason, but for some reason, we'll say, doesn't ban a lot of carcinogenic and toxic chemicals, because we have the world's most industrious pharmaceutical companies here. And hey, what better way to make sure that we are always on pills and everything else by keeping chemical agents that are there. But a lot of other countries, like, why is this in your food? Why do you have organic food? Why do you spray your food with pesticides and herbicides? Why do you do that stuff? Like, they just call it food. There is no organic in a lot of other countries because it's food. They don't have the chemicals and the pesticides. And a lot of the foods that they have are banned, that we have are banned in other countries. There was a country I was looking up, and it was saying, all the candies and all the foods that aren't in there. And they have one little shop, I think it's in the airport, where you can buy all the banned food in America that Americans allow. And it has all this most popular things. And you're like, wow, all these candies and all these chips and everything are banned in other countries? Well, yeah, because a lot of these chemicals are in your food that you eat every single day that lead to cancer, kidney failure, liver damage, hyperactivity, brain disorders, neurological disorders, all these things. And Americans, we just say, well, it's part of growing up. It's part of natural. Hey, I'm 40 years old. I'm supposed to be old and out of shape now. And hey, I'm 50. My life is over. Hey, I'm 30. And we think that we're only supposed to have energy and health up until we get up to 30. And then after that, it's all downhill. Well, no, it's not. It's if we want to take our health and our life seriously, like, this is my body. This is for the time I'm here. I want to cherish this. I want to make my life the healthiest and the most enjoyable. I don't care about quantity of years. I care about quality of life. And to me, that's more important. There's a lot of people out there that just don't care. They're going to eat their junk. They're going to eat because they just don't care, because they're emotionally eating, mentally eating, because they're just trying to, constantly get that little dopamine rush, because they're constantly polluting their digestive system full of stuff, and that sugar or that chocolate is giving them a little bit of boost. But these type of things are important for us to understand. One of the other important toxic chemicals, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard this, is nitrates. Nitrates is a synthetic chemical compound that contains nitrogen and oxygen. This is a preservative added to food to intensify flavor. It is extremely carcinogenic. One of the top foods that you actually know that nitrates are in is things like hot dogs and burgers and things that you barbecue with. Barbecue is one of the worst things we can do, people. It is. It may taste great. You may love to do it on Memorial Day, Sundays, Labor Day, all these holidays, but it is the worst food you could do because you char your food. You use processed foods, usually like high processed cheeses, low quality meats, and things with nitrates in them. And this is something like, and you can taste it. I can always taste it. I like a hot dog once in a while. And hey, I go to Chicago. I like my Chicago dogs. When I go in there, I get 2 every time I go in. And hey, that's fine if you're going to do that once in a while. But when you're eating this stuff every day, this has a high risk of cancer because yes, it's carcinogenic. So again, and heart disease. Nitrates is huge in heart disease. A lot of times we think of fats and clogged arteries, but this is something that affects us. And same with type 2 diabetes. So if you eat a lot of things with nitrates, you're at a higher risk of diabetes, especially type 2, and you're at risk of heart disease. This is something that is something that we have to understand. Fortunately, there's a lot of companies that are getting rid of nitrates. You'll start seeing them on the packages. No nitrates, no fillers, no preservatives, and I love that. But people, not everybody's on board, and they might still, some companies may label stuff like that and then retitle some of these products or some of these chemicals as something else. And you may say, my rule of thumb is this: if you can't read it, if you can't say, oh, that's vitamin E, oh, that's vitamin C, that's this. If you can't do that and it's some crazy name, then don't eat it. Don't buy it. Don't eat it, because that's telling you that it's a chemical. It's something made that they panned or someone panned, and they're putting it as a preservative or something to prolong shelf life or taste or something, and it's not healthy for you. You never see something that's healthy from Mother Nature with a crazy name on it. Why? Because that's just not the way it is. Names that are full of chemistry have a purpose. They're usually done for a reason, and that's why they have a crazy name for it. Probably the last thing I want to talk about is sorbates, poly and potassium. And these are also used as preservatives in food. You always hear polysorbate. That's probably the most popular one. And this is the reason why sorbates are so, especially polysorbate, is so toxic to the body is because it damages white blood cells. And it's genotoxic. So what that means is it damages the genes and it creates a mutation. And the more sorbates that you have in your body, obviously, the more damage to the white blood cells, which are your immune system, your immune function, and these are immunosuppressant. And so if we're immunosuppressant and are damaged, and guess what? Cancer, disease is going to go when we get sick. It's really going to take us down. And that's one of the reasons why with things like if we have a scare like a COVID or anything like that, why people who are sick get taken down first, because usually their immune system is compromised anyways because of all this thing. But our body is, and so I never buy anything. The moment I see sorbate in it, I throw it back. I mean, most of the time I shop at places that don't have these, but even in places like Sprouts and Whole Foods and everything like that, there are GMOs, there are preservatives and things, there are things that aren't healthy for you. So just because you think, oh, well, I'm going in Whole Foods and I'm going to spend my whole paycheck on one muffin, and that, yeah, but what's in it? And you'd be surprised, because I've done that. I've even ridden Whole Foods, and I've ridden Whole Foods many times. Hey, you're supposed to be organic. You're supposed to be natural. You're supposed to be all these things. And why is this chemical in here? Why do you sell something and label this, and all of a sudden, boom, you have a preservative in there that's very toxic, very carcinogenic? You're supposed to be the idea of this. And then they always write back, hey, I didn't know that. What are you talking about? I had no clue that was in there. Right. But that's why it's important for me to help you understand some of what is going on, because if we learn to label read and we learn to understand, hey, next time I see polysorbate or potassium sorbate, next time I see this, hey, if I eat this, it'll damage my white blood cells, it'll damage my genes, which could cause mutation, it could create infertility, which, hey, if I'm trying to get pregnant and I'm eating foods with polysorbate in it, hey, guess what? My chances of becoming pregnant are starting to be reduced. It creates anaphylaxis, and it also helps damage our DNA. So it may sound simple, and you may say, oh, polysorbate and different things like that, vanillin and nitrates and all that stuff. Hey, the words don't sound too bad, but the damage is done later in life. Just because something doesn't hurt us now doesn't mean it's not going to affect us later. There's a lot of people that smoke for years. Some people, once in a while, hey, it doesn't ever do anything to them. But a lot of people lose their throat, have to get their throat ripped out, their surgeries, all sorts of things, breathe through a tube, die of cancer. It's just, and so people who have done drugs, maybe when they're younger, all of a sudden now when they're 40s and 50s, their brain doesn't work as well. So my idea is just like, hey, just be conscious of what you're doing now. Just because it hasn't hurt you today it's the same with vaccinations. And I don't want to get into that thing, but just because it hasn't hurt you today doesn't mean it's not going to affect you down the road. So if you really care about who you are and your body, and you understand that, hey, this is my temple, this is something I really want, to cherish. I want to love myself, because remember, this is a lifestyle. Health is about a lifestyle. I really want to love myself. I really want to, be with, and just cherish and have myself around for my family and my kids and all that, and I want to have a good quality of life, then this is really important to start taking care of ourselves now. The argument is always, well, Miss Raina, it's so expensive. Yes, in the United States, it is, because they want you sick. It is a fact. They want you sick. Everybody knows that. They've even admitted it. They want you sick. So this is something that we have to deal with. Either you pay a little bit. Well, what's the Fram commercial, I think? You pay a little bit more now or a lot later. Exactly the same thing. You either pay a little bit more now in food and eating healthier, less chemical food, or you pay a lot more, because if you ever had chemotherapy or surgery or anything like that, heart plant, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, hundreds, and your insurance isn't going to pay for all of it. So if you don't have insurance, are you going to be able to afford that? No. A lot of people die because they don't have insurance and they can't afford a $150,000 surgery. So what are you left with? I'd rather eat healthy now, have less money to be able to pay for things, but I honestly don't need anything. Do you really need all this stuff? No, you don't. You need the basics. I'd rather spend more on my health and have less physical stuff, because I don't need anything. I'm happy inside. And be healthier. And that's one of the reasons why I survived the EBV like I did, was because my body was strong from taking care of myself for so long. And I'm grateful for it. I'm very grateful for everything that I've been able to experience because of that. So, all right, guys, I think we're going to end it here. I have so many more notes. We might do a part 3. I don't know. Maybe we might do a part 3 a couple weeks down. I don't want to keep, I know this is a lot, and for some people it's interesting. Other people it's boring just going down a list. If you guys have any questions or comments, or you guys want to hear about something, let me know. Maybe we can edit the notes for later, or I might even do a couple of session shows. We have those on Saturday at 1 p.m. But anyways, guys, that's it for tonight. So as always, follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com/transcendental transformation. Our YouTube is the same. Visit my website, soulandspiritguide.com, and sign up for the newsletter and get VIP access to special hidden shows. And when we have guests, they sometimes have special guest offers. Email us at transcendentaltransformation@gmail.com. And if you enjoyed today's show, which I really hope you did, please share it with somebody. The only way we're going to help others and get, and help ourselves grow is by you helping us as well. And always remember to believe in yourself, and it's not our abilities and talents that make us who we are, but it is our choices. Thank you, and have a wonderful week.